Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Welcome, Maverick family, far and wide from all corners of the globe. So much to talk about tonight. Every day I wake up and I think, gee, I wonder if there's going to be any news to talk about. And as usual this evening, there's more to talk about than I can possibly cover. We are going to talk about the discovery of a First Nations woman, the body of a First Nations woman in a Winnipeg landfill. We will take you to a meeting between Canadian Justice Minister David Lametti and the Assembly of First Nations. He is going to be talking about the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples and what the government is doing to align the Canadian justice system with the provisions set out in UN DRIP, or UNDRIP as I often refer to it. Also, we're going to talk about the economy, the shift away from the US petrodollar globally. We have Speaker McCarthy holding a news conference after meeting with the president of Taiwan. Vladimir Putin is saying the West has helped Ukraine mount acts of sabotage. And we're going to talk about the tornado situation in Missouri. And right now, as we speak, Justin Trudeau is addressing high school students at a town hall meeting. Let's just dip into that for a moment. This is live.
To succeed in their full potential, our economy does better. But your question was very specific, Melinda. What are we doing about those jobs now? How are we making sure that there are good middle-class jobs for years to come in the global uncertainty, in the disrupted supply chains? We're doubling down on the fight against climate change.
What?
If Volkswagen decided to come to Canada, it wasn't just because we have natural resources that they can use in building their batteries. It's because Canadian workers with health care, with stable communities, safer than the United States, with
you're going to fix the economy by doubling down on climate change?
Political disagreements than you have south of the border. Less toxic polarization, although it's creeping in and we have to be careful. Makes Canada a much more attractive place to invest in stable companies that are going to last for a long time.
Oh my gosh.
The fact that 8 years ago we stepped up in a big way and put a price on pollution, as I talked about with Agnes, was an indication that we know where the world is going and we want to be part of it. Whereas the United States, they're having to do a really big IRA right now, big investment in green, because they lost 4 years under the previous administration in investing in the green transformation of our economy. We are building a sense of Canada knows where the future is going and are better positioned to get there than just about any other country in the world. When you look at the populations of the G7 countries, more or less flatline, Canada's the outlier because we're still so open to immigration. We have programs like the Global Skills Strategy that brings in top engineers from anywhere around the world in a few weeks to be able to build those research facilities or jobs that we really need.
Wow.
But there's always more to do. So one of the things we put in this budget, Melinda, is we're putting historic tax credits down on things like building the clean electricity grid. making sure that by 2035 we have 100% carbon neutral electricity grid, because companies around the world want to be building things with clean electricity. But that's going to take investments in more renewables, investments in nuclear, investments in geothermal and tidal and all these sorts of things. We're making great investments in that. We're putting tax credits on hydrogen so we can develop those solutions. We're putting tax credits on carbon capture, use, and storage so that we can use the natural gas, convert it into pure hydrogen, and make sure that we're not emitting carbon and continuing to contribute to greenhouse to global warming and climate change. But a piece of all of those tax credits, if a company wants to get those tax credits to the max for those investments they're making, the first time ever we put in labor requirements. They have to pay people good living wages at union levels in all those industries if they want to build the future. And it's not just self-serving to make sure that people are paid well. It's because increasingly clients and customers around the world of those big companies are wanting to know that things are being done responsibly, that you're supporting real communities where people can have that future, know their kids are in good hands, know there will be jobs for them into the future, where you're responsible about the environment, where you're working with Indigenous communities in respect and breaking down the colonial practices of decades and generations past. People care about provenance now. One of the challenges that I've always been frustrated by as Western democracies parade around the world saying our model is the best, you should all be democracies, you should all be capitalist, successful democracies like us, is that our model hinged for too long, for too many years, on relying on natural resources and energies from dictatorships and autocracies around the world that didn't care about the environment, that didn't care about human rights, that didn't care about labor standards. And we can't pretend that our model is the best if it relies on the exploitation of people on the other side of the world. That's
Cobalt,
the reckoning
lithium.
we're going through right now as a world. That's what we're realizing with the war in Ukraine, with the behavior of authoritarian states, with the need to see real positive growth and opportunity in places like Africa or South America. We need to change the way things
South
are
Africa
done.
is part of BRICS.
And there is no country in the world better positioned to lead that change and benefit from that change than Canada. So that's how we make sure there's a strong future for the middle class in this country. That's how we make sure more people get to join the middle class. That's how we create the prosperity and the growth that Canada's going to need in the coming years. Thank you very much, my friends. Yes.
Prime Minister Trudeau, just a few seconds. I see your detail getting closer and closer because they're trying to drag you out of here. I do want to say thank you on behalf of Durham College. I also want to say thank you to Ryan Turnbull, who I know hounded you constantly to come to Durham College as a very strong advocate of the college. I really want to say how wonderful it was to have an open and honest dialogue with you. I often tell people that our world is in very, very good hands when you meet a Durham College student. And the questions today prove that to me. I was glad to see that somebody stumped you a couple of times and really made you think about your answers. But it's been an honor for all of us here. And so thank you again. Come again soon. Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
We obviously didn't get to take in the entire address. Very dramatic when he speaks, the gestures, the tone of the voice. It seems to me sometimes as though it's fake, forced. And so much of what he says when he speaks about the economy just to me doesn't make any sense. We're facing severe economic challenges, high inflation, global competition, so we're doubling down on climate change. And then making that argument that the way to stimulate the economy is to invest in the green economy, which really means print more money, hand out free cash to big companies, corporations that do the government's bidding, line the pockets of your friends, set up more government programs to centrally plan the economy so that you control where the economy is going, what's produced, how much of it, and by whom. And then talks about it being a capitalistic free market system, which it is not at all. Far from it, quite the opposite. It's very much government controlled. That's the true nature of the Canadian economy. It's actually today dominated almost entirely by public-private partnerships between corporations and the federal government. And then he talks about ending the reliance on foreign-produced natural resources. Whose fault has that been? It's been Justin Trudeau's fault. He's the one that has been preventing Canadians from tapping into the huge oil reserves here to make the most of that resource in Alberta and Western Canada, getting that to market. So that Canada has so much. There's so much abundance here in terms of natural resources. There's no need for us to even be importing anything if we didn't want to. But we do every day. Unethical oil, blood oil from the Middle East. That's the way it's been for a long time. And as he stands in the way and puts roadblocks up to further energy production in Canada, he only increases our reliance on foreign energy supplies. When Canada really doesn't need to be importing anything if we didn't want to. We could be entirely energy independent just on our own and export. We could be one of the richest, if not the richest country in the entire world. Much of Canada is so rich in minerals and energy, natural resources, lumber. We have everything in excess, enough to share with the world. But he doesn't maximize our use of those resources. And then he talks about unethical production of these resources in other countries, talks about the shift to a green economy. Well, that's electric cars. Where do you think the cobalt, the lithium, where do you think that comes from? It comes from mining operations that in many cases employ, I use the word employ loosely, but use child labor to extract the cobalt from the earth. Strip mining, leaving giant pockmarks on the face of the earth in order to extract the lithium. And I'm not even sure if lithium production is sustainable. There's a finite amount of that, and I think far less of it, honestly, than oil. But we're all in on the future, on a future of lithium for battery production. Where do you think the lithium's going to come from for that Volkswagen battery plant in Canada or the battery plant in Windsor, Ontario? There isn't enough lithium being mined in Canada or the US to supply those factories. It's going to be coming from overseas. And a lot of that production as I say, strip mining, child labor. And then he stands up there in front of those young people and fills their heads full of ideas that suggest Canada, the US, Western society is so virtuous because we're making this huge shift to the green economy. We'll see how it pans out in the long run. Let's take a break. When we come back, maybe what I'll do is talk more about the economy. I have a whole bunch of notes that I've taken over the past day to discuss exactly that, because folks, we are in for a rocky ride economically. And Justin Trudeau, I don't think he's up for the job. Not at all.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So let's talk about the economy. Let me just bring up my notes here. So, as you know, the US dollar is the world reserve currency, at least it has been. But I think we're nearing the end of that dominance of the US currency. In fact, it's quite clear that we are, because just within the last few days, what have we seen? We have seen let me just see if I can find this here. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Yes, there's what I was looking for. Their finance ministers and central banks are considering the possibility that they might drop the US dollar. And Indonesia is calling for the phasing out of Visa and MasterCard. This is huge. And it's another signal that we are moving into a multipolar geopolitical, geoeconomic reality. The United States has used its currency as a weapon against its enemies to leverage its political demands around the world. It's basically bullied other nations economically. That's always the way the U.S. has operated. But we've seen in this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which is really a war between Russia and NATO / the United States, that economic sanctions have really not worked, that Russia is now aligning itself with China. We have the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those are the BRICS nations. And they have formed a new cooperative, a new alliance economically to oppose and provide and to create an alternative system to what we've had with the US dollar dominating globally. You know, when the call went out to sanction Russia as this conflict in Ukraine erupted, 195 nations were asked to participate in sanctions against Russia. The narrative from the media here in the West, of course, is that the sanctions were working, that all Western nations were basically on board with this, that there was unity. But the truth of the matter is, only 37 of those 195 nations actually have participated in sanctions against Russia, and they have clearly been largely ineffective. As those sanctions took hold in Russia, Russia was ready to respond. Economically, they've been able to shift supply chains, shift their economy so that production in their factories continues. Even at the consumer level, where there was McDonald's, there's now an alternative basically serving the same foods under different names. They just set up different companies, different branding, different supply chains, and they've shifted their alliance or their focus more toward China. The entire world is shifting its focus more toward China. China is kind of eating our lunch because our leaders are not really focused on the right things. They are very confused, I think. You just heard Justin Trudeau say that because we're facing challenges on the employment front, high inflation, what's his response? We're going to double down on climate change. It's time for our leaders to get real. Stop with the managed decline and focus more on production. We're in a lot of trouble, in my estimation, because the government doesn't have much room to maneuver. They keep going back to QE, quantitative easing. That's just money printing, essentially. Every time we get into any kind of economic turmoil, they just keep printing money. They just print more money, inject more money into the system, blow the balloon up bigger. The problem is that strategy isn't going to work anymore, or at least not for very much longer, because now that other countries are moving away from the US dollar, which is the US petrodollar, it's leaving the West more and more vulnerable. Why? Because we are carrying massive amounts of debt. I think in Canada alone, I shouldn't quote the number because I'm not exactly sure, but just on a per capita basis, Canada, the United States, massive debt for each individual. And what does that really mean in real terms? It means that we're in trouble because we don't really have productive capacity here that we used to have. Our factories have largely disappeared. We've outsourced our production. Where to? China, Asia, largely. Other countries like Malaysia, Bangladesh, our textile industries, long gone, decades ago gone. Clothing manufacturing, not even existent here anymore in Canada. It's just gone. All this production, it's just gone. You know, back in World War II, what was it that allowed the West to prevail in World War II? One of the main things that drove the victory was the huge industrial productive capacity of the West. The Kaiser Corporation producing ships in record time using modular construction techniques. Shifting production from auto plants to the production of tanks and jeeps and munitions. Why were they able to do that? Because the factories were there. And we still have some factories, but we've given up our production. And this is an economic war as much as it is anything else. And that means you have to have production. You have to have productive capacity. We saw the vulnerabilities even during the pandemic. Our medical supplies, our pharmaceuticals, even a lot of our food comes from China, where it's processed. We send raw materials there, where they get now raw materials from other countries, add value in production in Asia, and then ship the finished goods back to us. Our corporations, the big companies, and the government have allowed and even encouraged outsourcing of production, to send the production overseas, to make use of lower cost labor, lower labor standards, just lower costs overall, and then have the goods shipped back. Because we don't have the productive capacity here, we're consuming more than we should be. We're living beyond our means, have been for a long time. The government has basically been financing that with funny money, inflating the debt. And who do we owe the money to? China, as they buy up more and more and more of what we actually have here, and other countries, foreign investment in the country, and because we owe them for what they have produced that we have not yet paid for. And when we can't pay for it, the game has been when the government, when we as a society can't pay, really pay the debt, the government just prints more money, which actually reduces the value of it, which means that the people we promised to pay for those goods end up actually getting less. Because as we pay with currency whose value has been diminished because of inflation, because of the increase in the money supply, we actually end up paying them less than we promised them. It's a game. It's a shell game. They've caught on to it. That's why they're getting away from the US dollar and, by extension, the Canadian dollar, because our dollar is definitely tied to the US currency. And all of this is part of a larger game that's being played, or a larger scenario that's unfolding right now as other countries align themselves against us, and even countries that we think are our allies are now showing that maybe their allegiance, their loyalty to NATO, to the United States, to the West, their friendship with Canada maybe isn't as strong as we have been led to believe. Because right now, where is Emmanuel Macron, the president of France? He's in China for a 3-day visit, meeting with Xi Jinping. Here's video of him getting off the plane. Here he is. And you would think that, given the current situation with the conflict in Ukraine, that a Western leader like Emmanuel Macron would be like, no, I'm not going to visit China. I'm not going to visit with Xi Jinping. No, especially with all of the tension right now over the situation in Taiwan. But here he is. I'm telling you, this is not looking good for the West, for us, for the United States, for Canadians. We're in a pretty rough spot. And if you think things are expensive right now, you just
warm water
you
before
wait.
bed.
Hang on a sec here. You wait. You just wait and see what happens if the U.S. currency, if the Canadian dollar, if it collapses. If it's no longer the world reserve currency and demand for our currencies diminishes, things are going to get a lot more expensive, folks. Way more expensive. Like more expensive than you can imagine. Because there's a lot of supply, and if international demand for our currencies drops off, we're in deep trouble. Keep in mind, too, that the U.S. dollar's value is tied to the value of oil. It's the U.S. petrodollar. No longer on the gold standard, not attached to the value of gold. The U.S. doesn't have enough gold reserves to shake a stick at. And there's Macron in China. Who else on the western side is cozying up to China? The Prime Minister of Australia also being invited. It looks like he's being invited, or he's expressed. He says he'd love to meet with Xi Jinping. And again, you would expect that with the war raging in Ukraine, the Prime Minister of Australia would, you would expect him to say, no, I'm not going there, but nope. Made it very clear he's quite happy to meet with Xi Jinping. So I'm just telling you, man, keep your eyes on this because we're in deep. In addition to that, what are we seeing on the oil front? We're seeing OPEC just recently cut production by 2 million barrels a day. Huge, huge problem for the U.S. Big problem. Biden doesn't like that. And then they just announced they're going to cut production by another 1.16 million barrels per day. And that reduced volume will remain in place until at least the end of 2023. And that announcement coming from OPEC Plus. That means higher prices at the pump. And as a result, we've already seen oil prices increase from about $70, $72 a barrel. It's now up around 80. And that impacts all of us because everything we buy, everything we do, oil has the price of oil has a direct impact on everything that we buy, everything we consume. Our food, every consumer good, everything that's brought to market, it's all brought by trucks. Diesel fuel, our trucks still run on diesel fuel. Everything. That will also result in increased inflation. And that puts Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, all Western economies into a very, very difficult position. Because if you get additional increased inflation because you have increased energy prices because there's reduced energy production at a time when we're already in a recession, when the economy is really in a position or a place of stagflation, the government has very little room to maneuver. We've been seeing that they might be looking at increasing interest rates over the next number of months in order to rein in consumer demand to cool off the economy, if you will, or cool off inflation. But the more they do that, the more they slow things down. And we are already in, honestly, a recessionary period, even though they're telling us we're not. They're cooking the books, and you can see it at the grocery store every time you go. So if you have increased energy prices, that's going to create an even crazier situation for the government and for the economists. What is the solution to that? My solution is production. You need to increase production. You need to grow your way back to prosperity and grow your way out of debt. You need to produce. You need to ramp up production of something. But our productive capacity has been so severely cut, it's going to be difficult for us to get back to that place. And when you have politicians with a mindset that is such that they want to attack climate change to fix the economy, it's insane. And what are they doing to stimulate investment and growth in the green economy? They inject government money into it. The Inflation Reduction Act on the US side, that's just more government money printing and spending, more debt. That's just an aberration of Keynesian economics where you just keep on printing and spending and printing and spending. You need to produce. You need to actually produce. Because the more money that they keep pumping into the economy without increasing production means that people just keep spending it on foreign-made goods. And as a result, our national debt, our personal debt, it increases over time. We just keep on getting deeper and deeper into debt, living beyond our means, not actually producing enough. Paying too many people to sit at home and do nothing. Well, we pretend that we're prosperous. We're not prosperous. We're just living on borrowed time, living on the affluence of the future, which is going to impoverish all of us down the road. It's an economic reality that is going to come home to roost pretty soon. It's already manifesting itself in terms of higher prices at the grocery store, at the pump, in everything that we do. And it's leaving us vulnerable even on the defense front. Because to combat rising gas prices, Biden didn't increase production on the US side. He keeps looking to Saudi Arabia, to OPEC, to increase production. He cut production at home. Trudeau keeps cutting production in Canada, standing in the way of increasing production of oil domestically. And Biden, to combat those rising oil prices, what did he do? What, about 6 months ago, or I'm losing track of time, but he tapped into the strategic oil reserve and started to release oil into the marketplace in an attempt to reduce gasoline prices at the pumps. He used what is supposed to be a defensive stockpile of energy for political purposes to artificially deflate the price of oil and gasoline by releasing stockpiles from the strategic oil reserve of the United States. He hasn't replenished it. And he needs to do that. And he needs to do it at the right time. He keeps waiting and waiting and waiting for the price to go down internationally on the global market, on the commodity markets for oil. Keeps waiting, and it's not going down. It keeps going up. That leaves all of us vulnerable, because if you're in a war, you need a lot of energy. You need a lot of oil. All those tanks, the jets, you need jet fuel and diesel fuel. You're not going to just recharge those things with solar panels or wind power. It's oil that provides the energy for the defense of our Western democracies. And the stockpile's not there. He keeps on waiting. That means oil can be weaponized now against the United States. Energy. The United States is trying to stop Russia from selling gas to Europe. It's about energy. It's about the dominance of who's going to dominate the economy. What's the world reserve currency going to be? You want to know why we're on the verge of World War III? It's because of all this stuff. They're telling us that it's about democracy and freedom. And that's what they keep saying even about the situation in Taiwan, where the United States has changed its foreign policy from a one China policy and sort of being ambiguous about what they say to now being all in and hard line pro Taiwan. We're in a pretty rough spot because it's not about freedom. It's not about democracy. It's about power and it's about money. Our oligarchs on the Western side, do you think they want to give up all their power, their influence, their money? They don't want to do that. And they'll put pressure on the government to preserve their wealth. The politicians themselves, the people in charge, the elites, the globalists, the people who really run things. That's who's pulling the strings. They don't want to give up their wealth and their power globally. So as the US dollar slips further and further, as the US loses its hold on world dominance, as we enter into this new multipolar geopolitical and geoeconomic reality, we're going to see, I think, more political instability and a further and faster shift toward conflict. Not just because the military-industrial complex makes a lot of money from wars like the one that is currently raging in Ukraine, but because the West is trying to prevent these other countries from aligning, uniting, and creating an alternative economic and political reality in the world, one that is diametrically opposed to U.S. imperialism and dominance. And don't expect the alliances that we've always relied upon to hold. Even Canada. Canada could easily slip away from U.S. influence, U.S. dominance, pull away. Justin Trudeau admires the basic dictatorship of China. He's said it. We have U.S. military on Canadian soil. They've been here for quite a while, training. There is a relationship with China. In the long run, maybe that would be a good thing for Canada because the U.S. currency is slipping. Maybe. And we're seeing Saudi Arabia now issuing a public statement that the United States is now no longer its most important trading partner. That's mind-blowing because the U.S. petrodollar is supported entirely on its relationship with Saudi Arabia. The arrangement has been that the United States provides defense on the condition that oil sold is sold in U.S. dollars, that they accept U.S. dollars only. That's all breaking apart. Now we're shifting away from oil production and the reliance on oil, or they're trying to. And if we get away from oil, then what is it that's going to support the U.S. dollar? It's not gold anymore. It's not going to be oil. So it has to be what? Labor? You want to know what the truth is? You know what really supports the U.S. dollar? Nuclear weapons, fighter jets, a strong military bases all around the world. That's what's been supporting the dollar. That's the reality in Saudi Arabia. That's the reality in the Middle East. The United States says, hey, we've got the military, you've got the oil. Our dollar will become the world reserve currency. We'll protect you. We provide the military there. But as a result, in exchange, because we've got the big bombs and the big planes and the big tanks and the big ships, you have to sell your oil for US dollars in order to ensure the value of our dollar worldwide. So it isn't really just oil, it's the weapons, it's the military backing all of it up. As the oil market softens in terms of its commitment to the US dollar, that's why you'll see more of a shift toward conflict. The US is going to be saying to Russia and India and Iran and China and Brazil and South Africa and other countries that align with the BRICS nations, no, 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 you must subscribe to the international rules-based order as we dictate to you through NATO. If you don't fall into line, we'll do this and we'll do that and we'll sanction you and the sanctions aren't not going to work. Not anymore. So what are they going to do? They go to war. That's what's going on in Ukraine right now. There are other aspects to it, but it's largely about the economy. It's about that geopolitical reality that they're trying to determine. What kind of a world are we going to be living in the years ahead? It's being determined right now. That's why everything is so volatile. And it's all about the money. It's all about the power. And that's why Macron is in China right now. That's why we're at war in Ukraine right now. That's why Vladimir Putin today came out and said that the United States, the West, they have aided Ukrainian saboteurs. And he wants his people, his military experts, to do more about it. He's calling on his own military to take a harder line with the West. What's that going to look like? I'm not sure. What does it mean? More cyber warfare? Excuse me, more information warfare? More what? More kinetic warfare? I sure hope not. But it sure seems like we're heading down that road. And everything is shifting to Asia. And those Asian countries that we've been buying product from now for decades, Bangladesh, Thailand, China, Malaysia, they're all getting stronger. Why are they getting? Because they're producing stuff. We're not producing. Oh, we'll just ship it over there. Set up a factory, says Joe, who runs this big company. We'll just close the factory here in North America and shift production to one of these smaller countries, produce it cheaper, and then import it back and sell it to our own people at a higher price based on an inflated market and fake money, and live high off the hog beyond our means. And now these Asian countries are much stronger economically. They've been producing, generating wealth over time. And now as they can decouple from Western currencies, what they're finding is that they can actually self-determine their destiny, their economic destiny, their political destiny, their destiny as a society. And so now even a country like Malaysia is calling on its economic partners to decouple from U.S. currency as being used as its default currency. That's the new reality. Even a country like Malaysia, which in the minds of people here in the West, in Canada and the United States, admit it. Most people sit and think, when you buy a new shirt or some garment at the clothing store and it says made in Malaysia, or you buy some electronic device and it's made in Malaysia, you know darn well that you're thinking that there are people over there working for much lower wages, for a much lower standard of living, and you're okay with it because you got your gadget, your whatchamacallit, cheap. And you paid for it with money, inflated money, like hot off the printing press, courtesy of Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden. And it's fake. And now we owe them. And now they own us. Welcome to the new geopolitical, geoeconomic reality.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So today, Speaker McCarthy met with Taiwan's president at the Reagan Presidential Library. So we'll just dip into that.
I am honored to meet with Taiwan's President Tsai as she transits the United States. Fittingly, our discussion took place here at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. Here at his library, there are countless exhibits that capture President Reagan's patriotic spirit, his belief in democracy, and commitment to the ideas of peace and freedom. Those values have always served as the bedrock of our friendship with the people of Taiwan. And they are more important now than ever before. I believe our bond is stronger now than at any time or point in my lifetime. And of course, President Tsai is a great champion of that bond. Taiwan is a successful democracy, a thriving economy, and a global leader in health and science. And whether it's our deep commercial ties, strong people-to-people relationships, or shared values, our cooperation with the people of Taiwan continue to expand through dialogue and exchange. The friendship between the people of Taiwan and America is a matter of profound importance to the free world, and it is critical to maintain economic freedom, peace, and regional stability. We will honor our obligations and reiterate our commitment to our shared values, behind which all Americans are united. Today was a bipartisan meeting of Republicans and Democrats united together in a place that symbolizes the freedom and the commitment and the bond that's only become stronger with the president with us today. President Tsai?
Thank you. Speaker McCarthy, friends, I am delighted to visit the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library once again, this time with Speaker McCarthy and distinguished members of the Congress. I want to thank Speaker McCarthy for his warm hospitality and for his invitation to bipartisan congressional leaders who have taken time out of their busy schedules to join us today. Their presence and unwavering support reassure the people of Taiwan that we are not isolated and we are not alone. It is especially fitting for us to meet here to pay tribute to a distinguished American president and world leader, a man who also played a crucial role in partnership with the US Congress in protecting and fortifying US-Taiwan relations at a time of changing diplomatic realities. President Reagan's 6 assurances of 1982, on top of the landmark Taiwan Relations Act passed by the Congress, laid the foundation for a strong and unique partnership of over 4 decades, during which we have maintained peace and promoted prosperity and welcomed the advent of Taiwan's democracy. However, it is no secret that today, the peace that we have maintained and the democracy which have worked hard to build are facing unprecedented challenges. We once again find ourselves in a world where democracy is under threat, and the urgency of keeping the beacon of freedom shining cannot be understated. President Reagan said it best: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation. In the discussion with congressional leaders this morning, I reiterated Taiwan's commitment to defending the peaceful status quo. The people of Taiwan may continue to thrive in a free and open society. I also highlighted a belief which President Reagan championed, that to preserve peace, we must be strong. I would like to add that we are stronger when we are together. For this, I also express our deepest gratitude on behalf of the Taiwanese people to members of the Congress on both sides of the aisle, and a number of initiatives that have helped to make Taiwan and our partnership stronger. Specifically, initiatives in the realm of enhancing Taiwan's self-defense capabilities, fostering robust trade and economic ties between us, and supporting Taiwan's meaningful participation in the international community, have all served to safeguard our shared interests in peace and prosperity across the Indo-Pacific. Taiwan strives to be a reliable partner to the world, a cornerstone for stability in the region, and a force for good. There is saying in the Confucian Analects, that is, one who is virtuous will not stand alone. In our efforts to protect our way of life, Taiwan is grateful to have the United States of America by our side. As we confront the unique challenges of our time, let us be mindful of the principles that have forged our great partnerships and bear in mind the lessons President Reagan's enduring legacy. Once again, thank you, Speaker McCarthy, for your warmth and for your friendship. Thank you to all our friends in Congress for standing by Taiwan. Thank you.
That gets us a little bit closer to a war. What is freedom? What does democracy mean? What are the definitions? It goes beyond a definition. It goes beyond, it goes into perception. It goes into subtlety, ideology. One person's idea of freedom is another person's idea of slavery. Indeed, even anarchy, which might be perceived as ultimate freedom because there would be no government, could be perceived as or viewed as a living hell to some people because it would be completely lawless. It would be the law of the jungle, only natural law in play. Anarchy, absence of government, complete absence of government, no rule of law. Is that a free society? Is that freedom? Or does imposing certain limits on people's freedoms become necessary in order to have an actual free society, an actual functioning democratic society, free society? Do you need limits on freedom to achieve actual freedom? I would say yes. It becomes necessary. It's part of the reality. There's the idea of political ideological purity, and then there's political reality, right? Here's more from McCarthy. Hang on just a moment. It's not playing. What happened? He froze. Let me pull him out and we'll re-queue it. Internet glitch, I guess. Here we go.
Relationship and will work hand in glove with the Biden administration to affirm our commitment because we understand the unique
Better audio levels on
and
this.
vital role that Taiwan plays in the region. We welcome competition with the People's Republic of China, but do not seek conflict. The work we do in Congress will seek to promote the safety and security of the Indo-Pacific region while protecting American interests and the interests of our allies and partners. We look forward to this meeting and more meetings like this in the future and the continued cooperation together. I want to thank the bipartisan nature of this delegation and introduce Chairman Gallagher of the Select Committee of the Strategic Competition of the CCP.
Just give me a moment. Here we go. Here's more from McCarthy now.
He's 1 week on the job and he already brought
us together. Bipartisan. Well done. Look forward to much more greatness there. No better place to be seated today.
Listen
And to the
the
members
language.
behind me, thank you for coming. And if you notice, it's not members of one party. We're here united together in a very important issue. I want to thank all of you for being here as well.
Cliches.
It's great to be joined by so many members of both parties at the Reagan Library. And it is a fitting place to have such a discussion, given President Reagan's commitment to the people of Taiwan. President Reagan's 6 assurances serves as the backbone of our relationship with the people of Taiwan. The members here today make clear we take our support for the people of Taiwan seriously and are determined to speak with one voice. The relationship between the people of the United States and Taiwan have never been stronger in my lifetime. We had a very productive discussion with the president of Taiwan today. We covered the crucial ways to further our bonds. Based on our conversations, it's clear that there are several actions are necessary. First, we must continue the arms sales to Taiwan and make sure such sales reach Taiwan on a very timely basis. Second, we must strengthen our economic cooperation, particularly with trade and technology. Third, we must continue to promote our shared values on the world stage. We live in a decisive moment in history and must act with urgency. Tension in the world are at this highest point since the end of the Cold War. As authoritarian leaders seek to use violence and fear to provoke needless conflict. The bond between the people of America and Taiwan is foundational and long-standing. Together, our people have weathered multiple crises and cooperated in important areas of technology, trade, and human rights. America must stay true to our values and remain consistent in our support for the people of Taiwan, who share America's people's desire to live in peace, freedom, and democracy. I felt our meeting today provided a greater peace and stability for the world. America's support for the people of Taiwan will remain resolute, unwavering, and bipartisan. It is my honor to introduce to you the next speaker to come before us, the chairman of the Democratic Party, a fellow colleague from California. And for all those with camera, please take the view behind us, because I don't think California has ever looked so beautiful. Congressman Pete Aguilar.
Okay. Enough of that. I'm going to challenge you now. Before I do this, though, I'm just going to say, there's McCarthy using words like peace, freedom, using the word peace as they prepare for war. Talking about peace, as he says, first up, the first thing we need to do is make sure we continue our arms sales to Taiwan as the sabers continue to rattle. And then in the next breath, he uses the word freedom. Something of a cliche. And again, I say, what does freedom mean to you? What is freedom? What is it? It means different things to different people. They talk about human rights. What are rights? Are they bestowed to us from a higher place, like from God? Or are they given to us by government? I would argue that government is supposed to be there to protect our rights. And that in a democracy like what we're supposed to have, the government is supposed to be limited in scale and scope. And as such, they're supposed to be protecting our rights. So now I'm going to challenge you. I have a list of rights. And I want you to take a look at this and tell me if you think these are all good, if you agree with these things. Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Article 2, and listen carefully to these folks, and then just ask yourself if you agree with these things. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. Article 3, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Article 4, no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Article 5, no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Article 6, everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. Article 7, all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. Article 8, everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. Article 9, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. Article 10, everyone is entitled to full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his rights and obligations and of any criminal charge against him. Article 11, everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty, according to law, in a public trial at which he has had all the guarantees necessary for his defense. And no one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at the time when it was committed, nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time the penal offense was committed. Article 12, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or acts or attacks. Article 13, everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. And everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. Article 14, everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. And this right may not be invoked in the case of prosecutions genuinely arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purposes and principles of this declaration. Article 15, everyone has the right to a nationality, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality. Article 16, men and women of full age without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at the dissolution. And marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. And the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. Article 17. Everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. Article 18. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media, regardless of frontiers. Article 20. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Article 21. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country directly or through freely chosen representatives. And everyone has the right to equal access to public service in his country. And the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. This will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures. Article 22. Everyone, as a member of society, has the right to social security and is entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperation, and in accordance with the organization and resources of each state, of the economic, social, and cultural rights indispensable for his dignity and the free development of his personality. Article 23. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protection against unemployment. Everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work. And everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself and his family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. Everyone has the right to form and to join trade unions for the protection of his interests. Article 24. Everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. Article 25. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. And motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. Article 26. Everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. Elementary education shall be compulsory. Technical and professional education shall be made generally available, and higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. And education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect of human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations and the maintenance of peace. Parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. And I'm almost done, but did you see what just happened there? I was asking you, do you agree with this? And this is the United Nations Declaration of Rights, human rights. Article 27, everyone has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. Everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which he is the author. Everyone, in Article 28, everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration shall be fully realized. Article 29, everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible, and in the exercise of his rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in a democratic society. And these rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. And last, Article 30, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein. And so I read that to you tonight because I hear repeatedly, and I share these concerns, I hear repeatedly opposition to the United Nations, globalism. I hear repeatedly concerns about globalist or even UN assertions of power. A lot of concerns, but when I read that, I agree with it. Does the UN live up to it? I don't think so. But the truth of the matter is that declaration stands for basically everything I believe in. And yet here we are repeatedly over and over and over again expressing concerns about the UN. So it gets complicated is my point. It's not cut and dried. That represents freedom. That represents a declaration of rights for all human beings around the world. And yet, when I talk to freedom fighters, they're all opposed to the UN. I don't believe that we should be signing over any of our sovereignty to the United Nations. I don't believe the UN lives up to that declaration. By the way, it's important for you all to understand as well that that declaration is not legally binding on any nation state. It does form the basis of, I guess, influence. So nations adopt a lot of those ideals and integrate them into their sometimes even legal systems or their constitutions. But that declaration is not legally binding. It can be used to, I guess, apply moral pressure against any nation state in order to make sure that those rights, that Declaration of Human Rights, is applied to the citizens of any United Nations member country. And there's a lot of pressure that can be brought to bear against any country that doesn't live up to those standards. But the UN itself isn't even living up to those standards. But the point is, everyone is worried about globalism, the increasing influence of the UN, of the World Health Organization. But does anyone actually take the time to read the documents, to really find out what they really stand for, what the basis of all of this is? And so as I'm reading that, I can't disagree with it. It makes me think. What are we opposed to? What are we fighting for? Those are the important questions. When I hear people saying things like, let's tear it all down, we need to defeat this government or get rid of this guy or get rid of that politician at any cost. Okay. But let us ask, replace it with what? And what are we truly opposed to? Are you opposed to that United Nations Declaration of Human Rights? Universal, globally, to all people, in all nation states, which it recognizes. I'm not opposed to any of that. I think those are all very sound principles. And much of that has been adopted here in Canada, or at least it's supposed to have been. But what we do have is a government elected democratically that has engaged in overreach, that has not respected that. Certainly not during the pandemic. But maybe we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe we refer back to documents like that and keep throwing that in the face of the politicians and saying, hey, wait a minute, Canada is, the United States is a member of the United Nations. This is a document that we aspire to. This is what we are supposed to live up to. This is what we're supposed to set an example for the world with. Why are we not living up to this? And this is not a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo. This is just trying to hold our politicians, our bureaucrats, our leaders to a certain standard. Why are we throwing it all away? Why are we so eager to just tear it all down? I agree with all of that stuff. I don't believe in globalism. I do believe in nationalism. I believe in a sovereign state. I believe that we should be able to determine the destiny of our own country democratically so that we can act in the best interests of the citizens here based on the economic, the political, the cultural, the societal, all of the realities that we face here that are unique to our communities, not just nationally, but regionally and even locally. So we should not be signing away our sovereignty to the United Nations, but we should be aspiring to principles like that. Our politicians should be too, our bureaucrats, our healthcare professionals, our doctors, our lawyers, our firemen, our carpenters, you, me, everybody. We should be held to that standard. We need to work toward that standard for our citizens within our country. I just throw it out there because people just are so quick to just dismiss based on title or conditioning even. Just throw out the UN, throw out this, throw that out, get rid of this. You know, we need to be careful because if we just tear it all down and burn it to the ground, it's gone. And it could be gone forever. We need to, in my view, preserve the best of what we have and work to improve the things that aren't right. Let's take that old car, fix it up. Take the best of everything, cut out the rust, weld in some new metal, prime it, paint it, wax it up, and take it to the show and shine, baby. Put it on display for the world and say, hey, look what we've done.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So I'm hoping that in that little rant thing that I just went through, that you found something positive in it, because that's really the intention. I just think that there is still hope out there. We can make the world a better place. We can make our country a better place, our communities a better place. And I see the best of humanity come out of the worst of times, and that's exactly what's happening down in Missouri. and in other areas that have been ravaged by tornadoes in recent weeks. And still thinking about Lori and her roof in Oklahoma. I hope she gets it fixed soon. Here's information on the Missouri tornado. 5 deaths reported. This tornado slammed into southeastern Missouri early Wednesday, caused at least 5 deaths and an unknown number of injuries, prompted a feverish search for survivors in the wreckage, authorities said. This is from USA Today. Tornadoes were reported in parts of Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri late Tuesday and early Wednesday, and severe storms forced brief ground stops at major airports in Austin, Chicago, and Detroit. The Missouri Highway Patrol tweeted that they were assisting agencies in Bollinger County and in search and recovery efforts near the village of Green Allen, about 100 miles south of St. Louis. The damage is pretty widespread. It's just heartbreaking to see it, said Sergeant Clark Parrott of the Missouri Highway Patrol. Crews had to use chainsaws to cut back trees and brush to reach homes, he said. He added that the death toll might rise as crews sift through the rubble of homes. It's been a pretty rough few weeks, I'll tell you that. So according to meteorologists, the tornado was on the ground for about 15 minutes and traveled about between 15 and 20 miles. Here's some video of it. We'll bring this up so you can see it. It's amazing to see the power of nature and so destructive. Look at this. I mean, from a distance, it just looks like, well, I mean, how bad could that be? It's bad. It's like it drills into the ground. Look at the flashes there as things ignite, blow up. Just devastating. And you know, there's other footage from Iowa that I have here. This was amazing storm chaser footage. This from Midwest storm chasing, and this was from 2 days ago. This blows my mind, what we're about to see here. Just wait. You just wait and look at how close he gets as this twister comes toward him. He's driving down the highway here. Now you can see that looks in the distance. It's like, is that just a storm? But you see how it comes down, that huge funnel, and it's huge, the base of it, and it stretches all the way down, and it's actually touching the ground. This one, I would say, much bigger than the one we just looked at previously.
Yeah,
Look at the size of the base, and he's getting closer and closer. The lightning in the sky, the dark clouds show how dense they are and how full of moisture. And you can hear the thunder. And look how wide the base of that funnel is as it's touching down on the ground. This is from a distance, obviously. We're going to get a lot closer. This guy's going to get right up close to it. This is some of the most amazing storm footage I've seen. And he says here, notice the new funnel developing? Yes. very scary. Look how the clouds just stretch over the sky and then right down into that funnel.
Nice cone tornado on the ground. Looks like it's not very far from this town. And I see a lot of debris being wafted.
Just sucking everything up off the ground and pulling it right up into the funnel. Unbelievable. And we're going to get a lot closer. You just hang on. We ain't seen nothing yet. Devastating for the people who live there. But as I say, in moments like this, the worst of times, it seems to bring out the best in people, because whenever there's a disaster like this, people seem to come together to help each other, provide aid, relief, come to the help of their neighbors. I've seen it time and time again. That's the way people are. Communities coming together. This is, look at how dark that funnel cloud is. That one is dark. It's massive.
God. I see whole entire, like, roofs or something in the air. Oh, no.
That's right. That's how
We're
powerful
going to watch
it is.
this town take a direct hit. Oh, God. I'm watching the tornado's motion to make sure that we're in a safe spot.
Again, Midwest storm chasers. This is what's been going on in Tornado Alley
Yeah, it's on the track filming.
over the past
Just barely this
couple of
way.
weeks. Big storms.
We might have to move that way a little.
Devastating.
I'm watching.
He is so close. Dangerous. Just insane, the power. This is what they're characterizing as or estimating an EF4 tornado, which means it reaches wind speeds of between 166 and 200 miles per hour. They only have one category higher.
Safe here. I'll make a call. You can hear it.
In other words, this is about as
The roar.
bad as
Oh
it
my God,
gets.
there's so much stuff in the air.
It does not get much worse than this. EF4.
Yeah, we're good
tornado.
here. It's gonna get really windy though.
Look how close he is now. Look, it's coming straight at him. I don't know how much he's zoomed in, but man, oh my God, it looks like a bell, a white bell with a big, dark center section ripping up the ground and everything in its path, destroying everything in its path. Oh my God. I can't believe that building is still standing there. It isn't taking a direct hit, but it's so close, that house. That tornado swirling around just so close to the water tower. Could you imagine if it hits that water tower, what would happen? And the amount of soil, debris, everything being picked up, sucked right up into the center of the funnel. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? And they're still chasing it. Driving
That is
down
violent motion.
the highway.
Holy crap. You can see it again if you look really closely. See the dark funnel right in the middle of the debris cloud?
Still has some power to it. They're still chasing it. Further away from them now, but you look up into the sky there, you can still see the expanse of storm, and that funnel cloud still touched down. Seems to be losing some of its power at this point. It's still massive. It's breaking up now, as you can see in the distance, and it seems like they're being hit with some hail. Lightning.
That's so low contrast. You can barely make it out.
Rain. Unbelievable, but it's dissipating now. That's what the people have been dealing with in that area. And look, here's this storm now. Look at this. Look at the rain, hail. Looks like hail. And maybe it's just water. I can't really tell, but it's really coming down in sheets. I'm pretty sure that's hail. Hail mixed with rain. Maybe just rain, but it's coming down so hard. It's hitting so hard. Amazing wind. Yeah, it's hail. See, he's got, look at the size of that piece of ice. That's bigger than a quarter. Very much thicker. You can see the devastation here. And look at the way it just flattened these buildings. Just ripped them to shreds. Nothing left, really. I mean, it's just complete destruction. Just destroyed. Look at those buildings, just nothing left of them, just completely flattened. Heartbreaking. Trees flattened, uprooted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, too many to count. All uprooted. Giant trees. When I've covered storms like this in the past, you know, that's the thing. It's like big trees are very vulnerable. They look strong, but they also catch the most wind. And that's when they are easily uprooted. That. Devastating. Absolutely incredible. Don't go away. More coming up.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, so I did absolutely want to talk about this. The Prime Minister tonight saying that the federal government needs to do more to end the epidemic of violence against Indigenous women and girls. This after the discovery of another Indigenous woman in a landfill this week in Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Homicide Unit says it has started an investigation. This after the discovery of the body at Brady Road landfill, south of Winnipeg. This victim has been identified as 33-year-old Linda Mary Beardy. Police say they do not think the case is linked to the killing of Rebecca Contoy, whose remains were found in the same landfill last year. And they do not think that this killing is related to the murders of 3 other women. Police have said that they believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Mirren are in a different privately run Prairie Green landfill north of Winnipeg, but those bodies have not been found. Justin Trudeau says his government has made significant strides in countering gender-based violence, but that there's more that needs to be done. Jagmeet Singh says the discovery highlights the need to implement the 231 calls for justice from the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. The federal Crown Indigenous Relations Minister has praised workers at the city-run Brady landfill for their heightened vigilance in finding Beardy's remains. Mark Miller says that a study into the feasibility of searching the Prairie Green landfill for the remains of Harris and Myron should be completed in the coming weeks. And I know that that has been a terrible situation and a point of controversy. The federal government did put up $500,000 back in February to study the feasibility of a potential search in the landfill, but because so much garbage has been dumped in the landfill over the time period in which, following the period of time in which they think those bodies were placed in the landfill, those murder victims, they don't know if it's even possible to find them. An Indigenous-led committee headed by the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs said Tuesday the study is expected to be completed in 4 to 6 weeks. The organization added it is confident the study will deem these search and recovery efforts feasible. And it's pretty clear that a lot of people think that every effort should be made to recover those bodies. It's just horrific. Also today, Justice Minister David Lametti in Canada addressed the Association, or rather the Assembly of First Nations, a Special Chiefs Assembly in Ottawa. And he was there to provide an update on the federal government's work with First Nations on developing an action plan to align Canadian laws with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We've talked about that a lot on this show. Lametti is also there taking part in a question and answer session. First Nations leaders are meeting from now until tomorrow to discuss the federal government's draft plan to implement the UN Declaration. Back in September of 2021, the UN adopted the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples and provides a global framework to advance their rights in areas including self-determination and self-government. But the views on that vary. I personally am not a big fan of UNDRIP. I think that it makes false promises of sovereignty to First Nations peoples. Let's tune in to what Justice Minister Lametti has to say.
Just confirming that everyone that is part of Minister Lametti's presentation is here. I am aware travel is a challenge right now in the city of Ottawa with the weather. So at this point, I would like to introduce the next session. Of course, yesterday we did have the session on the UN Declaration Action Plan that was recently released by the federal government. And we did have the discussion yesterday. There is an opportunity. We have an hour. We have allowed for an hour on the agenda. I'm going to say about 30 minutes for presentation and discussion. And then at that point, we would like to open it up for at least 30 minutes if there are any questions
so I do want to stick with
for
some
Minister Lametti and his team.
Of
course, we will have the plenary session this afternoon with regional perspectives on the UN Declaration Action Plan. And then a reminder, tomorrow there is also an opportunity, Chiefs, if you would like to speak from the floor to address the issue. So we are dealing with that this morning, this afternoon, and again tomorrow. I just wanted to remind you of that.
This is critical to the future
with the
of Canada
federal government's
and the United States.
Presentation, I'm going to introduce the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada, Minister Lametti, who I believe is also with Assistant Deputy Minister Laurie Sargent, who is in the ADM present. Okay, we don't see Laurie, but again, there may be a challenge with the weather here in Ottawa. Also, I'm not sure on the list that I had, we had Director General Keith Smith. I'm not sure if Keith Smith is present, but if not, we have the person that we need here to make the presentation. I'm going to introduce again Minister David Lametti.
Thank you. Merci. Kwe. Hello. Bonjour. Sego. To all the knowledge keepers here today, to National Chief Archibald, I know she's running a bit late, and all members of the AFN Executive and Chiefs in Assembly, thank you for inviting me to your Special Chiefs Assembly here this morning. I want to acknowledge, there's Laurie Sargent, I want to acknowledge that we meet today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Your focus this week on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the UN Declaration. And I will thank, following Willie Littlechild, Chief Willie Littlechild, I will call it the Declaration because he has straightened me out about calling it UNDRIP. La Déclaration des Nations Unies fournit un cadre pour la réconciliation, la guérison et la paix. Elle est le fondement de relations de coopération harmonieuses reposant sur les principes de la justice, de la démocratie.
Keep in mind that the Canadian government has introduced its own legislation making this binding
J'aimerais faire le point sur la façon dont le
nationally in Canada, which means that this declaration now supersedes the Canadian Constitution in many respects.
Appui sur la loi, sur la Déclaration des Nations Unies sur les droits des peuples autochtones.
Certainly our laws, it supersedes
Je veux
our
également
laws.
souligner les efforts déployés pour présenter une proposition législative visant le recours à des dispositions de non-dérogation comme moyen de garantir que toutes les lois fédérales
Whether it
sont
supersedes the
interprétées
Constitution or
d'une
not,
façon qui
I
confirme
can't
les droits
say with any
ancestraux et issus
authority
des
because
traités.
I'm not a lawyer.
Reconciliation is a complex journey, one that requires, at the same time, both urgency and patience. Urgency, because there can be no further delay in our efforts to address the legacy of colonization that have contributed to the discrimination and inequality experienced every day by Indigenous peoples in Canada. Patience, because these are large transformative steps that we are taking together with implications for First Nations across the country. We are taking every step in partnership with Indigenous peoples, knowing that this is the only way forward. The backbone of reconciliation is the implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The coming into force of UNDA, the UN Declaration Act, represents a crucial step forward, one that will ensure sustained and continued efforts to recognize, promote, and uphold the human rights of Indigenous peoples in Canada. The Act's passage launched a 2-year process to co-develop an action plan with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis that will guide us in implementing the declaration at the federal level. Over the last year and a half, our government has worked closely with Indigenous peoples through a broad, inclusive, and distinctions-based consultation and cooperation process. This has included government and Indigenous-led consultations, which ensures the action plan reflects the priorities of Indigenous peoples from coast to coast to coast. We reached an important milestone on March 20th with the release of a What We Learned to Date report and a draft action plan. Those 2 documents will help support the next phase of co-development of the plan. The draft plan is just that. It's a draft. It is not perfect, it is not final, it is not complete. It is, however, a tangible marker of how far we've come together, and it puts us on track to meet the June 2023 deadline. Excuse me. When we met last in December, the timeline for a spring draft felt ambitious, but there's been a strong commitment on all sides, and we've made real progress. Cooperation is the key. This is a process that includes First Nations, Inuit, and Métis rights holders, including modern treaty and self-governing nations, and national and regional Indigenous representative organizations. Notre objectif est de mettre au point un plan d'action qui établit les mesures à prendre pour opérer un changement générationnel durable, ce qui implique, pour le gouvernement fédéral, de mettre en place des mécanismes de responsabilisation qui vont au-delà de ceux déjà prévus dans la loi. Le plan d'action reflètera
les priorités des peuples autochtones et fournira process, the Canadian government is investing to create a parallel justice system, specifically to service Indigenous peoples under the direction of the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples. And Lametti has spoken to that before. I expect he will address that here. And as I understand it, if charged with a crime, if you are declared Indigenous, you can choose either of the systems.
Plan is a draft. It is meant to be the focal point for intense discussion over the next 3 months. There's a lot missing in there. There's a lot that needs to be improved. There are a lot of suggestions that have been made recently by various First Nations groups that have yet to be incorporated in, and there's still a lot of dialogue that will continue focusing on the strengths and weaknesses of that draft. But it is just a draft, and that is the intense work that is going to come for the next few months. I now want to turn to a long-standing priority issue for First Nations right holders, including modern treaty partners. ensuring that all federal laws are interpreted as upholding Aboriginal and treaty rights affirmed by Section 35 of the Constitution Act 1982. Last month, we released another draft, a draft legislative proposal to include a non-derogation clause in the Federal Interpretation Act, which would apply to all federal enactments. That proposal followed extensive consultation and cooperation with Indigenous partners over the past couple of years. The draft legislative proposal is now posted on the Justice Canada website and will remain online and open for comments until April 14th. There can be comments after that as well, but we really want to push, again, people to get their comments in by the 14th. This document has been around a while. We hope it will facilitate further consultation with Indigenous peoples and organizations with a view to building a broader agreement. Specifically, we want your views on the language of the draft legislative proposal and on the potential for repealing some of the other non-derogation clauses contained in other federal acts. It will be important to hear from as many Indigenous voices as possible as we work towards the next steps in the process that will further promote and protect the rights of Indigenous peoples in Canada. All of this is transformative work. As I noted earlier, some of it is urgent because of deadlines that we have built into the legislation. But a great deal of it will happen long after I have exited the political scene. These are evergreen documents that will continue to move forward as we finally begin, after over 150 years, to walk the path together, something which we have long promised we would do, but we never have done. One lesson that I have learned from many of you in this room, as I look around and see the faces of people who have taught me a great deal, is that reconciliation is a generational process. Undoing the effects of 150 years of colonialism does not happen in the life of a single government. But we have a responsibility to do everything we can now. That's certainly the way I view my role and my mandate as Minister of Justice and Attorney General, so that in the future, others can bring further correctives and make further improvements in order to get things right. Nous avons tous un objectif commun. Nous voulons tous que la Déclaration des Nations Unies,
all of this happening as the Pope rejects the doctrine of discovery, that in itself a major development.
In the immediate days and weeks ahead, I invite all of you to share your points of view on the draft and to give specific recommendations, critiques, and other suggestions in order to fill the gaps that exist in that document or to correct what you feel needs to be corrected. I also want to hear your views on the proposal to contribute to upholding Section 35 rights through a non-derogation clause in the Federal Interpretation Act. The work that we're doing here together will help us move both of these important initiatives forward. It's your voice and your priorities that we want to hear and act upon. And as I've said yesterday in a number of regional caucuses, I've said publicly before, and I'll continue to say, I believe this act is transformational. I believe that in 10, 15 years, we will look back and see the impact that it has begun to have on the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in this country. Finally, we're walking a path together. Does it mean this draft is perfect? No. Does it mean this process is perfect? No. But we have, I think, an opportunity, and I think I have a responsibility to you to engage and to try to make it as perfect as possible, knowing that it will be imperfect, and to work as hard as I can in the time that I have to make this work with you. I'm an optimist. That doesn't mean I'm not a realist and that I don't understand the challenges. I do understand the challenges. But my commitment to you is to do my best to make this work in the time that I have. And I truly hope that over the next 3 months, the level of engagement will be such that we refine the draft to get to an action plan that we're all happy with and will represent the next step forward as a roadmap for reconciliation in the future. Thank you. Merci. Megwich. Niawan.
This is going to be, to use his word, a transformative year, especially for Canada, but also I think even for the US, but especially for Canada. This process, it has more layers to it than you're even seeing here. We need to really, I need to look at it even more closely than I have already. I need to educate myself more. I encourage you to do the same. It may not seem that significant to most people. The majority of Canadian citizens, and even I would say, maybe less so First Nations people, but even there, I think there's a large degree of ignorance. We need to educate ourselves, find out what this process is about, where it's really leading, what's going on behind the scenes, pull those layers back, learn about them. This is going to transform the country. It's going to transform the relationships that we have between First Nations, between themselves, and the rest of Canada. This is about First Nation sovereignty. It's about what the fabric of this country is going to look like moving forward. What happens this year with regard to all of this that we're looking at right now will dictate probably for decades to come what Canada looks like, possibly even what the United States looks like. Because what Lametti is talking about, I think that's really just what's laying on the surface. We'll be digging into it more all, for the rest of this year and beyond, because this is a heavy-duty story. Don't go away. I've got more.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Hang on just a minute. Still queuing a few things up, so I'll just run this while I do that.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, in other news, a few things just to touch on. At least 3 public servants had their security clearances in Canada revoked after being accused of spying, and this happening from 2016 on. Documents that have been tabled in Parliament show that Fisheries and Oceans Canada, including the Coast Guard, in 2017 revoked the security clearance of one staff member due to the individual spying or otherwise acting on behalf of a foreign government. these are new revelations. This is new information being shared with the public. Employment and Social Development Canada also withdrew the security clearance of one public servant in 2019 for the same reason. In both cases, the government has not provided an explanation or elaboration behind their decision or any other information on the allegations of spying. In addition, the Canadian Border Services Agency revoked an employee security clearance in 2019, saying that saying in documents that the security clearance was revoked due to the individual acting on behalf of, again, a foreign government by disclosing information to that foreign government. And then in statements emailed to CTV, spokespersons for the DFO, the ESDC, and CBSA confirmed the details regarding security status being revoked for individuals within their departments and said that they take the protection of Canada's information extremely seriously. However, due to security reasons, the departments said they could not provide further details. This all happening while Canada goes through this process of determining whether a full-up inquiry into foreign government meddling in Canada's elections, and with particular focus on China, is ongoing. And as the Prime Minister's special rapporteur takes a look at the situation to determine if a full-up inquiry is warranted, Justin Trudeau saying whatever the special rapporteur decides, he'll abide by. I wouldn't hold my breath, though. I don't think it's something that Trudeau really wants, but there's growing pressure on the government to provide that inquiry, and I think that is what people want. I don't know if people have enough faith in the government, though, to have it make a difference in terms of their perception or how they see things, because I think that regardless of what the government does, a lot of people have just made up their mind is that there was foreign election interference, that the government knew or whatever, that there's too much corruption, la, 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 la. I don't think it would matter at this point how transparent or fair or balanced or impartial the process is or the people leading the inquiry. I think, a lot of people, the public, probably 50% would believe whatever came of it, and the other 50% would just dismiss it and say that it's inadequate and that the government cooked up the results. And that is because confidence, faith, trust in our public institutions has reached such a low point. That's a sad state of affairs, but that is the reality. Also tonight, international law enforcement agencies have seized a sprawling dark web marketplace popular with cyber criminals. This out of Washington and London, England. Britain's National Crime Agency is saying that in a multinational crackdown dubbed Operation Cookie Monster, they've seized this sprawling dark web marketplace. A banner plastered across Genesis Market site late on Tuesday said domains belonging to the organization had been seized by the FBI. Logos of other European, Canadian, and Australian police organizations were also emblazoned across the site, along with that of cybersecurity firm Quintel. So there you have government agencies cracking down on dark web transactions. And we've shown you that on the dark web, you can get all kinds of crazy things, many illegal things, including weapons that were sent to Ukraine. with our tax dollars. But if you want to buy a rocket launcher, I guess that's the place to go these days, is the dark web. Don't recommend it. Wouldn't do it. You're probably going to end up in jail. But people have in other countries. This just shows why we need better accounting and tracking of those weapon systems. Maybe instead of spending so much money and investing so much time and effort in tracking citizens, they should spend a little bit more time tracking the weapons that we send over and gift to other countries so that they can wage war. So that's, I think those are pretty much the main stories for tonight. Let's take a break. I'll set up the phone lines, and then you guys can join the conversation. I shall return.
We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey, no! To bugs!
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow. Maybe too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, ladies and gents, the phone lines are open. Here's the number.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
I'm back, and we have our first caller on the line. Oh, I think they got cut off. No, they're back. Here we go. Hello, who's on the line? Go ahead. Hello. Hello. I think they got cut off again. Well, let me put the number up on the screen, folks. Let me put it up here for you. The number to call tonight, as is the case every night here on the Maverick News Channel, is 1-833-975-3733, 1-833-975-3733. 975-33. That's 975-FREE. And that's all about free speech. Let's see if we've got the caller back now. Hello.
Oh, hello. Well, there you go. There you are.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Something really strange happened there.
It was kind of weird. But here you are.
Here I are once again.
How are you tonight?
Wow. Well, yeah, don't know. Just sailing through each day. I missed the first hour of everything, but when you were going through that list, I mean, all I kept thinking, honestly, was that's what Canada used to be. That's what I believed I was living under. And then I realized that it was the UN,
right,
which really kind of shocked me, because the UN is so compromised as much as Canada, if not more. I love the idea.
We're being told that it's the UN that's behind all these terrible, awful, evil things, right? And then you read that and you're like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't seem to mesh.
Exactly. Like it was making my eyes cross. Like I couldn't even grasp. Like every time I heard everything, I was like, but and the other thing I kept thinking was, but we used to have that. We're not free anymore. We just are not free anymore. The stuff that's getting crammed down our throats, I guess, what do you call us? Norms now? I don't even know anymore. But,
I don't know either.
Us that are living a normal life day to day as a man and a woman who have traditional values and blah, 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 all of a sudden, we're made out to be racist, and we're getting all this propaganda shoved down our throat that we have to support this and have to support that. And I am so sick of seeing rainbows and men in some of the stuff I'm seeing, like pardon me, but their parts all glittered up, hanging in front of children. I mean, and we're supposed to support this garbage. No, but it is garbage. It's not right. I mean, the worst thing that Canada ever did was close down the institution. I'm sorry, I guess I'm going on a rant again. Maybe they're right in calling me the ranting lady. I don't know. But, honestly, this is not okay. They're destroying innocent children's lives. I mean, their innocence is getting stripped away from them. Where are the parents? I don't get it. Ethics, morality, all of that good stuff that Canada used to be known for. People are leaving in droves, and some of them are just twisting in the wind, wondering where to go because there's so much corruption in the entire world. People are also, like the media, just not even acknowledging the depth and level of what's happening in France. Those people are fighting for everything that we've lost. They're fighting for us too. And yet people are still, condemning them for, well, they should behave. Like, pardon? If Canada, I mean, yeah, I don't think people have realized how much freedom we've actually lost. And I think that's the problem. And cramming this stuff down our throats, if this doesn't wake some of the sleeping up, I don't know what will. Honestly, I'm kind of at a loss. I would love for something to be savable. I really would. But the corruption levels, like the WEF have literally corrupted UN government, our government, Australia. Who else is involved? I don't even know anymore. I'm losing track. And, when did we sign? Like, there's no negotiations, talks about anything. It's just we're being told that this is what's happening and that's what's happening and blah, blah, blah. But there is no open door discussions about anything anymore. I don't know. What do you think? Deep breath.
I have a slightly different view. because I think
Yeah.
that people on both sides are being manipulated so that we end up fighting
Yeah.
with each other. Like, as I look
Yes,
at what's
I
going
agree with
on
that.
with the LGBTQ community, I have to ask myself, at what point did they come up with this idea and start to agree with the idea that it would be a good idea to take drag queens and start reading them stories, reading children's stories in schools and libraries? And so I can only come to the
Exactly.
conclusion that because this is such a bad idea, that someone
Mhm.
had nefarious motivations in mind
Mhm.
when they started to implant this idea in people's heads,
Mhm.
knowing full well that it would result in confrontation and controversy.
Mhm.
And that is exactly what we're
Yes.
getting. And then on the other side,
Yeah.
I see people getting jacked up, and I see that the social media campaign that's ongoing to get the other side, like this side, I guess, if you will, angry about it, to go out and protest.
Mm.
So then you get people on both sides. First, the one side with a really bad idea that they implement because for whatever reason they think that there's some virtue in it in order to go in and do this really stupid thing. And then the people on the other side being told those people are doing something, and then we go and people on this side go and protest it, and then they're told, do you see all those people protesting out there? They hate you. You need to fight back against them. And then they come out, and then they get in. Then you get this freaking war going on. I can't help but think that
100%.
both sides are being manipulated. A stupid idea followed up by, emotional manipulation on the other side, so that we all end up fighting. And I can't help but feel that it's probably all coming from the same place. All of this coordination and mind screwery that's going on. I just stand back and I look at it and I'm thinking, I don't want to participate in any of this because I think everybody's being manipulated. Everybody should just go home and mind your own damn business and just stop going to the schools, stop involving the children, stop everything. Just stop, everybody stop and just go mind your own damn business, and then problem solved. But nobody will. It's like everybody feels they have to get out there and fight. Well, stop fighting. Just go mind your own business. Go live your life over there. Go live your life over there. Stay everything out of the damn schools. Keep the schools apolitical. Don't inject your politics there. Don't inject your social engineering there. Try to keep as much of that stuff out as you possibly can. Leave the kids out of all of it, and just go mind your own damn business.
100%.
And it's all freaking solved. But nobody wants to do that.
Yeah. No, not the people that are doing the minute. I mean, they obviously have an agenda. We know this now. I mean, those of us that are awake, we know there's an agenda. The depopulation agenda, all of this stuff to de-male people and make women lesser and all of this stuff. This is all contradictory to all the stuff that we've built.
That's what it is. That's what's being overlaid on all of this.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I was hesitating to use the language. But you're right. I mean, it's disgusting, but it's like they're getting desperate to push everything to the brink, in order so that they can come in instantly and say that, oh, look, we're rescuing you. And all of a sudden, bimmity bangity boom, here you are. You are 100% digital, blah, 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 and smart cities and yada, yada. And next thing you know, we have nothing. We're in no control of our lives anywhere at all, because we've been so distracted and so worked up and so busy, getting distracted into all this crazy crap. I mean, everywhere I look now, I just walked into, because I missed your first hour, I walked into a shop downtown, and this lovely lady that I've gotten to know, every time I walk in, she'll tell me stuff. We yak a bit, and she went, and we've never talked about anything because we don't know each other, so we're just kind of friendly, right? But I don't know where she said, my niece is having serious issues with her nephew. All of a sudden he's getting into fights. And everything's going out of control now. Like, I didn't expect to even hear any of this from where I am. And it's making me realize that they're managing to ram this agenda so deeply down our throats that even in places that you wouldn't expect it are being affected. Now, when you get to that level, it makes me wonder, where do we go? Do we go to our small little municipalities or what? Like, how can we, once we in smaller places and stuff are getting infringed upon? I mean, because we're seeing it in those cities, like full on big, bleh. But now, you know, out in the outskirts and stuff, it's reaching out. But the worst part about it is that the police are complicit with it. Social services, all so-called services, everybody's, as you would say, lockstep into this madness. There doesn't seem to be anywhere anyone can actually go to say, "Hey,
I do want to defend police a little bit here, because, you know, their priority, if they're doing their job properly, and I can't speak to every demonstration everywhere, but their objective is to just keep people from fighting, to keep people safe, and to de-escalate things. That's what they are supposed to be doing. And depending on which side you are on, and depending on how any particular protest goes, there are always people who sit there and say, well, that cop didn't charge that guy with assault, or this cop didn't do this, or what, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, honestly, what the cops are trying to do is just keep the two sides away from each other so that they don't beat the crap out of one another. That's, you know, kind of what they're trying to do. And they also know that if there is some sort of an altercation between people, that sometimes if they start arresting people, it inflames the situation and makes things more dangerous. So they're in a really tough spot. They're in between two very angry groups of people. And as I've said, I think both sides are being manipulated emotionally. They're playing on people's fear and anger, which is a recurring theme in our society right now. And we just went through a program where we talked about psychological manipulation and mind control. And I'm telling you that it's going on every day to everyone, online, through social media and the mainstream media, but especially online. And if anybody out there thinks that you're not being manipulated to one degree or another, you absolutely are. I know I am. I'm trying to avoid it and make myself aware of it, but some of it is subtle and some of it is full on. We need to be aware and careful of that. I'm just telling you, man. I'm telling you, the best thing I think for anybody to do in most of these cases is just don't play into it. Don't, just stay away, I think, you know, and try to affect change in other constructive ways. But getting into the faces of people and fighting is not going to achieve or change anything. It's really not. It's just going to make things worse.
The problem is that, like, parents out there are wanting to defend their children. And it seems like, from what I'm seeing in some of these videos crossing my screen, I am seeing police turning a blind eye to a lot of it.
But who's forcing any parent to take their kid to a library to a drag queen story time? Nobody's forcing kids to take their kids.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. But I'm talking about the parents that are actually standing outside, holding their signs and saying, this isn't right. Right. And it doesn't seem like they have support. It seems like, no, you have to repent and support all of this. This is right. You are wrong. All of a sudden, it's like all the normal people there's something wrong with us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do 100% question the parents. Why in the love of God would you take your children to this crap?
Right.
I don't get it. I never will. But where, like, it doesn't seem like there's anywhere safe to even, like, if you want to stand up for what is right ethically and morally, options have been, seems like they've been stripped away. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Well, I can tell that you're upset, as you know, a lot of people are.
Well, it's frustrating, you know. it's just exhausting because like, it
say,
seems like everywhere you
say,
turn.
I want to protect my kids, but then they go and protest outside a library or some other place where an event is taking place, and their kids aren't in there. So what are they really doing? Are they trying to protect their kids, or are they trying to protect somebody else's kids? Or are they trying to impose their view on it on somebody else? And the other thing is, I haven't seen one of these. Like, I've seen some stuff online that obviously goes way too far. But some of these things, I mean, I haven't really seen, a drag queen story time in action, other than some of the more extreme ones that have been just like over the top. And the dancing and the crap and, the sexualization of kids, and a lot of it happening in the States, honestly, that I've seen.
And where was it in Calgary that they were standing there implementing a law? I only caught a glimpse of it, and they have a child standing there while she's basically saying that, there's going to be these fines if you protest against this group and whatever. I mean, first of all, I don't agree with them
what they're doing is they're imposing some restrictions on where you can protest. In other words, you have to stay within a certain distance away. Those are the limitations that are being imposed. It's not saying you can't protest. They're saying that you can't get within a certain distance of an event, like 100 meters or whatever. And that again is, I can't really, with the inflammatory nature of this, the volatile nature of it, I do see why they are trying to do stuff like that. They're trying to keep the two sides separated. So you go protest over there in that corner, and you guys stand on that corner over there, so that you don't beat each other up. I kind of see that. I don't agree with.
So what was the purpose of having the little girl standing there in front of everybody like that while they were announcing this? That really had me puzzled. And I mean, I saw that pastor that's been arrested, standing outside there, he got arrested again, but he was 200 meters away from it all, but he got surrounded by cops and got arrested. I don't know. I find it all very convoluted.
I have a different view on that too. I think he wanted to get arrested, and I think he did it on purpose, because he wanted to be a martyr, and he wanted the video shot of it in order to, again, get people cranked up. I think there's a recurring theme there, and I'm getting a little tired of it, honestly. I think he's manipulating you.
Obviously, you know more about that. I think you know more about that than I do. I just caught a glimpse of it because I've been busy today.
Reporting it that way, they're taking advantage of it too, to get people to click on their videos and to get people jacked up as well. As far as I'm concerned, that was an absolute case of media manipulation. That was a bunch of BS. Did it on purpose. He had the conditions imposed on him. He knew what the restrictions were, and he ran right down there and violated his conditions of release. He did it on purpose, and I'll stand on that.
People like that need to stop. People got to stop that stuff, because it's not making it any easier for anyone else legitimately concerned for their families and neighborhoods and whatnot, right? Like I said, some of this I'm only getting glimpses of, and that's why I'm like, what the heck, everybody take a breath and stop and take a look. But ultimately, if I had a choice and I had a will and I could wave a magic wand, what that list was, I want it back for Canada, because that's what Canada used to be. And so the question remains, really, how do we get that back? Because we don't have it now.
Well,
we don't.
It's like I've said, the key to the whole problem is Section 1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which gives the government the ability to do the end run around our rights when something like a pandemic comes along. And that's
reminding me about the pandemic. You have heard about the H5N1 that they're about to inflict on us, hey?
No, I'm not sure that I have. H5N1?
Oh boy. Yes, the H5N1 apparently they're going to throw upon us and try to do the whole pandemic thing again. Japan had made an announcement. Well, it was when I got word, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning. And at that time, it was released 11 hours prior. And saying that, the bird flu H5N1, they're killing chickens everywhere and blah, 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 blah. And apparently they're going to do another desperate attempt of a pandemic on us. That's what I've heard. That's deeply concerning.
We will see. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the H5N1.
The bird flu is back.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, this whole agenda thing, they're getting desperate and they're pulling all this shit out and, trying to get people in such a fearful, agitated state that we're going to be actually, so busy fighting ourselves that we're going to suddenly be, under siege, basically, and in our little cubicles and, whatever it is that they're planning. And apparently there's a whole lot more proof about, what they're doing to our food and everything like that. I would love a show on that. Some more detailed info on all of that and what's in the blood and everything. There seems to be a lot of new evidence coming out that's becoming quite fascinating. Anyway, that's just me though. Because that's the kind of stuff that affects all of us individually as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a lot of stuff going on out there that obviously concerns me too, especially things like the medical assistance in dying program. I'm opposed to that. I don't like it. And now we're seeing
and that's not getting any better.
Yeah, and we're seeing in France, Macron announcing that he wants to take steps to bring in a similar program there. So, all these countries, they're all implementing these programs. They have the same agendas. It's global in scope because they're all globalists. They work in concert. Right?
That's the problem. That's what we're up against. That's what people got to realize. It isn't just Trudeau that we're up against. There is a mechanism, a complete mechanism. They've worked very hard for many years to infiltrate governments globally, and they've succeeded on a kind of a scary level.
Yeah.
And that is what we have to look at, is to how to put a kibosh on the whole mechanism, not just Trudeau. I mean, Trudeau's going to be gone. I mean, we know that. I mean, but then what, right? Because he's the amount of damage done. Wow. Right. So I think that's where people need to start looking into, like, how do you stop that massive, that whole lockstep mechanism that's moving globally. And they're all like, I swear to God, when I see the language and hear the language, when they each from any country, they come up and they stand at their podiums and such, and they start talking and telling stuff. Some of it's word for word, right from Trudeau's mouth, or you know what I mean? Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they
have
talking points, right?
Yeah, they have their talking points and word for word, almost identical. We have to stop looking at it and I'm realizing I had an aha moment today. And as much as I hate the man, and oh boy, do I ever. But it isn't him alone. It is a system they've got in place. And yeah, that is what we're up against, is that whole, the entire mechanism that's been put into place to force one world government, basically. And that's what we got to figure out how to stop.
Well, as I pointed out earlier in the broadcast, that kind of cohesion may not hold in the face of a new geopolitical, multipolar, and multipolar geoeconomic reality. Countries will probably exit as the United States and NATO begins to lose its grip on world dominance. So don't be surprised if in the next, even year, 2, 3, a lot of this stuff starts to erode and we start to see new trends, new things. I haven't lost hope. And I think that you're already seeing cracks emerge. So,
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think people are getting so focused on the specifics of what the stuff that they want us to focus on that they're losing sight of the big picture. And it's frustrating. And it's frustrating as it is. I mean, I have silly things cross my mind, like, well, when the parks open up, and then what if I have to go to the bathroom? I'm going to be very, very scared to use the woman's watch. I'm not going to feel comfortable. I'll try to hold it till I get home. I mean, I don't know what to expect in simple life as it is, right? So all you can do is go a day at a time, and yeah.
Well, just remember that no matter what the government does and no matter what other people are doing, you get to still make your own decisions and live your life the way you kind of want to live it. As I get up in the morning and I go walk my dog and then I go down to the store, like for the most part, I mind my own business. People don't really have too much impact on my life. And I'm a little fortunate because I don't have kids in school and stuff like I did before. And, but I see people walking their kids home from school and, I'm not getting the sense that there's a lot of, how should I put it? Turmoil or disruption happening at the schools around the corner from me. The kids seem pretty centered. I when I'm out walking my dog, I run into some of the kids in the neighborhood and I say hi, and they just seem pretty normal. I don't like what's going on. I know with the curriculum in a lot of the public schools, but I still have hope.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty. I don't know how parents are coping with all that, to be quite honest. I'm glad I just have a cat.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyways, I've taken up enough of your time, but I apologize. I missed the first hour, so I can't comment on that. But I hope, I pray every day that we can get back to those standards again that we used to have. That's what we deserve, and it's been ripped out from under us, and we deserve it back.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because, I'm absolutely on the same page as you in that regard, because that's where I'm at, right? I want to get our countries back. I want them back the way they were with some improvements. I don't want to destroy it.
100%.
I want it back.
No. No, I mean, it makes no sense to destroy it because, I mean, that's just nonsense. But to get it back to where we can be proud Canadians again, that's a heck of a good start.
Yeah.
And then start, looking at all the cracks, because when things are broken, light shines through the cracks. We look in those places and we feel those cracks. That's what we got to do. And that's the artist in me talking, to put it simply. But yeah, that's what I hope for. And I'm guilty of getting caught up in the bullshit too. I get quite worked up seeing some of this stuff. I get very upset sometimes, and I have to take a deep breath, go for a walk, whatever.
Yeah.
And I have to constantly remind myself on a daily basis, even sometimes, what I just said.
And just remember,
and I hope,
we've just gone through probably the darkest days in our country's histories. Okay. We really have. This pandemic, it just brought out the worst in people, and the government's responded in the worst possible ways. I think it's only uphill from here. Okay. It's better days ahead. It couldn't get much worse than what we just went through. I mean,
Lordy, I like to think not.
Could, but I don't think it will. I think that people have had enough across the board.
Yeah.
And I think people are just ready to find a better way. As I said, I think this year is going to be transformative, and we're gonna get back there. I believe we will.
Yep. I do too. I do, like, have faith in the core of the goodness of Canadians, and people will rise up in the right way. And, again, I've said it before, good always wins. And it doesn't matter how dark it gets. We just need to remind ourselves that the light is on the other side, and we have to hold our ground and get to the light.
Give it time. And here's the thing too, stay focused on reality, real things.
Yeah.
Don't follow the crazy people. Don't follow people who want to be destructive, right? Especially don't follow the crazy people. And we will get back to where we need to be. And
in those moments when people are getting overly excited and stuff, and something I like to often say is, when you are faced with something you don't agree with and somebody's doing something to you that is not okay and it's bad, take a deep breath, and instead of, being on their level, be better.
Yes, because you're not going to change somebody's mind by punching them in the head. It's not going to work.
No, not at all. It's not. Absolutely. Yeah. So on that note, I wish you adieu and have a good evening. I'm half French and can't speak it.
Thank you.
What can I say? Got kicked out of my French class. Anyway.
My French is bad too.
You have a good night.
You too.
Oh, good. Okay, bye.
Hello, Pam.
Yeah. Hello. In those moments when people are that was a great call with your last caller there.
Here, hang on. Let me just get rid of that call. Maybe that's where the feedback's coming from. There we go. Maybe that's a bit better. You go ahead.
Yeah, that was a great call with your last caller. Very informative. I just wanted to say with the UN thing, it sounds really good, that list that you read off there.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trust them with my gut instinct, and this is a true gut instinct. I wouldn't trust them with the 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
They'll say all sorts of things, but it's a government, it's a globalist body that wants to control us. And that's what they're doing. And they're getting paid big bucks from it, probably funded by George Soros or whatever group he's involved with. But I wouldn't trust that with a 10-foot pole. And I think each nation should make up its own set of standards for living, and based on its own culture. And I'm really for sovereignty of different nations, and to let them keep their culture.
See, actually, you know what though, Pam? If you read that United Nations Declaration of Rights, it spells that out. It actually does call for the defense of national sovereignty. It's a very interesting document.
Well, I'll have to look at it more, but weren't they behind UNDRIP? Aren't they involved in UNDRIP?
I mean, there's a lot there. You'll find a lot of contradictions in the United Nations, but that document's been around a long time. I don't remember what year that was written. Maybe I'll Google it. What year was the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights written? Help me out here.
My dad was involved with that.
December 10th, 1948.
Okay.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted by the UN General Assembly on the 10th of December, 1948. But you see, that was a different time, wasn't it? 1948. Just
yeah, my dad was involved with that. We used to travel all over the world when I was little, because he was involved with setting the United Nations up. I traveled all over the world. We got picked up by limousines in Switzerland and everything, everywhere we went.
Yes. Well, you know, the injection of politics into the activities and declarations coming from the United Nations, that's inevitable, because it's a political body involving politicians from all over the world. But that document, that's that really does represent what the United Nations, I think, is supposed to be about, but it goes all the way back to 48. Well, it's 2023. It's a different time. Attitudes have changed. Clearly, the people involved in the UN, a lot of them who control things at the UN, and even our politicians here in Canada and the US, Biden, Trudeau, they are so woke that their political ideologies, I think, run in distinct contrast. They're diametrically opposed in many ways to that declaration.
Yeah, because I know I was raised on that stuff, and then I kind of got away from it because, like, when I joined the military, I knew we were part of the UN, and NATO and everything. Yeah. And my dad was really high up, but then he started getting involved with, like, Trudeau used to come to our house when I was little. I used to sit on his knee, Pierre Trudeau, Elliott. And
you used to sit on Pierre Trudeau's knee?
Pierre Elliott Trudeau's knee when I was little, yeah. He was nothing. He wasn't in politics at the time. My dad was the head of the Liberal Party for a local chapter. He used to be conservative, and then he went Liberal. And this was in Montreal, in either Point Claire or Beaconsfield. I was so young, or Hanson. Anyway, so he used to have these parties, and Pierre used to come, and when he got voted in, they were shocked. My parents were shocked. They were at this national convention conference, and he got voted in to be head of the whole entire Liberal Party of Canada. And they were just stunned. They're absolutely shocked. And so they didn't know, because he just kind of came out of nowhere. And but at that time in my life, I was so young, and we were just traveling the world. Like, every weekend, for a weekend, we'd fly to Switzerland for a weekend. And he'd go meet with people, and I'd have ski lessons. Or we'd fly to England or Scotland. I mean, we were all over the place in Europe. And then every time there was a World Fair opening, we got transported down there, and he was like a guest of honor and did public speaking at the opening of the World Fair, and I think it was in the Eastern States, maybe New York. But then I started to get this aversion about the UN, because I could see as I was growing up that it was changing, and I was listening to things on the news and whatnot. And I don't know what happened to it, but it's not the same UN that I knew when I was a little girl.
Well, the world isn't the same as it was. A lot has changed, especially in the last 3 years.
And so I don't, that list that you had and that you found, do you think they even still abide by that?
It's still there. It's still part of, the UN. I mean, I don't think it's changed. It's still part of what they're supposed to be about. But it's as I said, it's not binding on any country or any nation state. It's something for nation states to aspire to, and to some degree be held accountable to if they are a UN country. But there's no legal recourse people can take if a country doesn't live up to those articles.
So it's just a guideline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's because there's no way to enforce it on all of these different countries, because they are sovereign states, and it recognizes that. But the United Nations as a body will point to that and say, hey, XYZ country, you are in violation of this declaration, and we're calling you out on it. And they can be shamed, I guess, internationally, and they could then have a meeting at the UN, and member countries could even vote to impose penalties, maybe sanctions or some other kind of penalty on a country that is violating those kinds of human rights. And we've seen that time and time again with various countries that do violate people's human rights, countries accused of war crimes or, crimes against citizens.
I remember when 9/11 happened. My mom and dad divorced because she was conservative, and it's funny because she went to school with Margaret, Pierre's wife, Margaret. She went to school with her mother, and they were both conservative. And I ran into them as an adult. I took Mom to a strawberry tea with Pat Carney at the planetarium in Vancouver, and there's, Margaret's mother, Sinclair, and my mom introduces me, and she was not liberal, and yet her daughter married the prime minister. It was really odd. I thought that was very odd, and so it was just this whole experience. And listening to you, it's bringing back my early days of my life. I've got his diaries, and he's an author of a few books. He wrote one book called One World or None, but I never read it because I thought it was so liberal. I just sort of averted it, I said, oh, I don't want to read that. I don't want to.
The clock is ticking here, Pam. I'm just going to get you to kind of wrap it up for us. Just with a final thought, okay?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to tell you about the UN feelings. Like it's just really, I don't know where they're at now, but I really want to see our nations become sovereign again, and let us lead our own. Let the people of their own, like they say, charity begins at home. Well, the same thing with that's a problem. We haven't let charity begin at home because we're giving it so much to other nations and not to our own people. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people suffering here in Canada, and I just think that this whole globalist stuff is crap. if it's not Scottish, it's crap,
Yeah. Yep.
So that's all I have to say.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Pam. Have a great night.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Okay. And thank you for waiting so long. Who do we have on the line? Hello.
You know who it is. It's the motherless South man without a plan to master all disasters.
You're late tonight. Caller? You're late tonight. You're not first.
Something funny happened today, Rick. Something really funny happened today. I got so busy at work that I decided to work instead of watch a show.
Your employer is forever grateful.
Well, yeah, you know what? It is what it is. Some days we're busy, some days we're not. And we're super busy right now. Who was that last caller, by the way?
That was Dom Palm from British Columbia.
Oh, Dom Palm from Vancouver Island or Vancouver mainland.
Yeah.
Wow. She had Pierre Elliott Trudeau. She sat on his lap. Well, Sophie sat on my lap one time at this bar on Yonge Street called Zanzibar.
You're
in Toronto.
Oh, come on.
That strip club.
You're making this up.
Yeah.
You're making this up.
Well, she said her name was Sophie, right? Or he?
It's a Sophie, not the Sophie.
Yeah, we got to identify right here. Was it Sophia or was it a male? We'll never know.
Anyway, okay.
But it is my birthday Sunday, and I told my wife, anybody that buys me a case of Gearbox, a 2-4 Gearbox beer this weekend, that'll be pretty funny. You know that Budweiser?
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard
calling
about
it Budweiser.
I heard about it. Who was it? Was shooting the cans of Budweiser? Was it Kid Rock or was it somebody else?
Rock.
It was Kid Rock.
That was Kid Rock, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they call it Anheuser-Busch, but I don't see any bush on those cans. I see some chopped trees, but no bush.
Let me see if I can find that video.
You know where I'm going.
Yes, I understand.
There's another thing I want you to check out yesterday. You were talking about the Manchurian experiments, right?
The MK Ultra. Yep. Mind control stuff. Yep.
Okay, that's right. If you look up the name Terry Parker Jr., he's from Toronto, and I met this guy a couple of times through the cannabis marches and stuff like that. The World March was the last time I seen him, just before the scamdemic. But he was one of the first. Well, just read it. Look up his name, Google it, and read it to the folks out there. Google his name, Terry Parker Jr. I'm nowhere near my computer, by the way.
It's coming up. There's a baseball player. So it's not coming.
No.
I know what you're getting at, but I'm not finding. Maybe I have to add.
Well, he was the first guy ever to win a Supreme Court challenge in 2000, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he had epilepsy, and in 1972, if you Google the name, you'll find the article on him.
Here it is: Medical Child Abuse in Canada by Terry Parker Jr.
Bingo. Read that article to the people. It's short.
Yeah, as an unwitting subject of unauthorized classified human experimentation, I have been encouraged by a patient advocate to disclose this criminal cover-up and Nuremberg Code violations upon defenseless children, medical records and x-ray, and then it's got a website. Goes back to 1972 without informed consent nor parental knowledge. Well, under the guise of treating epilepsy, this information not only correlates with Manchurian candidate developmental research, according to The Mind Stealers by Samuel Chavkin and The Mind Manipulators by Alan Shefflin, it also correlates with the CIA MK Ultra project of psychosurgical and brain implant research upon unwitting subjects. And it goes on and on. So was he actually part of or a victim of the MK Ultra project, or was he involved in something similar?
No. He was a kid. He was a child with epilepsy, and they didn't know how to deal with it back then, right?
Right.
So they put him on that Manchurian experiment bullshit, right? And they spliced and diced some of his brain, by the way. And he was just a kid. Yeah. Fuck, I think he was 12 or 13 years old in 1972, right? Mm-hmm. But the unique thing about Terry Parker Jr. is that he was the first guy ever to win a Supreme Court challenge for cannabis for his epilepsy. He was the first guy to get a license to grow it in Canada. I think that was 2001. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he was the first guy to set it off. So that's how I know Terry Parker. Really nice guy. And I know where you're going with it yesterday. When he was telling me the story, I thought he was full of shit. Okay, mind experiments, government splicing people's minds, this and that, right? They fucked this guy up, man. And by you bringing it to light yesterday, when you said the MK, because I've never heard of it as the MK Ultra. I've heard it as a Manchurian experiment, right? But I didn't put two and two together till you were talking about it yesterday, and I was fucking Terry Parker Jr. You know, I know somebody, I met somebody who went through that experiment, right? Yeah. It didn't work well.
Well, you know, it's horrific. It's truly a horror show, and it is not a conspiracy theory. It's a very real thing. It's been documented by even mainstream media. Believe. The Fifth Estate in Canada did a big documentary on it back in the 1980s. Other mainstream media outlets, including, I don't know how many of the major networks in the US have touched on it, and yet people still today, many people just don't believe it ever happened, but it's very real, and now we have this lawsuit in the courts in Canada. It's very, very real. It's happening right now, and they're waiting for a decision on whether the U.S. government will be granted immunity to prosecution in Canada, and would then therefore become, untouchable in Canada on this proposed class action lawsuit involving the victims and or families of victims in the wake of all of this after years and years and years, going back to the 1950s.
It's hard to believe. It is. You know what? It's like Terry Parker was telling me this 5 or 6 years ago, and I didn't believe it. And I thought, yeah, right. The government was doing stuff like that. We'd all know about it, right? Buddy, it's all come to fruition. It's truth.
Yes.
Okay. And by you announcing it yesterday, now I believe that the Manchurian experiment happened before that, but by you bringing it to light yesterday, I'm like, Jesus, man. And it's hard to believe, We've dealt out a lot of money towards other causes, like the Aboriginal causes, Black Lives Matter, you name it, this and that. But these guys haven't received a cent.
And listen, I mean,
imagine being taken from your home because they don't know how to deal with epilepsy or with anything, right? Any neurological issues.
And look what happened to the victims. I mean,
you
look at Julie Tanny, and then her dad comes out of that hospital, goes in, lucid. He's basically normal, just jaw pain. Comes out, he can no longer talk. So then he's thrown back out into society. And if he meets people on the street, or if he meets a neighbor or whatever, and now you're like, you can't even speak to explain what happened. You're not right. People are just going to dismiss you as being what, like maybe, oh, that guy's a crackhead, or I mean, not a crackhead back then, but a drug addict or a crazy person. And meanwhile, you're a victim of torture, essentially.
100%. With no repercussions. That's a scary thing about it.
Yes.
It's hard to believe, right? It really is.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's fucking. I'm just floored. I'm just floored. If that ever happened to anybody in my family, my wife or my kids, I don't think there's enough ammunition in the country to stop what I would be doing.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Because it's wrong.
That's why I was so.
They stole.
That's why I so wanted to talk about this on the show, to bring light to it. And I'm so grateful to Julie Tanny for sharing the story with us last night. It's so important.
I think you should reach out to Terry Parker because he's outspoken. He's on Facebook.
Yeah.
He's an outspoken advocate, okay? And he's been talking about this for years. And he'll tell you, if people telling him he's nuts and everything else, he ain't nuts.
Yeah.
He's not nuts.
Yeah,
and hopefully, there's no dollars and cents I could fucking bring back what these guys have been through.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Plain and simple. There's none.
No, not enough
you
money.
Can't put a monetary figure on it.
No,
you can't.
And that settlement back in, what was it? I don't remember what year it was. It was in the 80s, I think she said. $100,000 to some of the families. Like, that's nothing.
That was big money back then.
Yeah.
That was big money back then. If you won the Wintario, remember the Wintario, $100,000 lottery back then?
That's right.
Shit, you were styling.
Yeah.
Yeah, $100,000 a joke.
Yeah.
It's
well,
joke,
back
Rick.
then, my parents bought their house. My parents bought the house that they're in today, still the one that I grew up in, $17,000.
Crazy.
I bought my first house. We bought our first house for $63,000.
I paid $92,000 for mine, and across the street, it's funny because when I met my girlfriend, her father said, "What do you want with my daughter?" And I said, "Well, I want to get your daughter pregnant a couple times and live in the house next door to you." Well, the poker table we were playing at, I was trying to get him out of his game. It went flying, chips went everywhere, right? He wanted to fight. I said, "Slow down, man. Fuck, I'm only joking, right?" Well, lo and behold, I ended up having 3 kids with his daughter, and I bought the house across the street. True story. So I'm a man of my word, right? So I got the house across the street. He paid $13,000 for his house back in the early 60s. Right?
Yeah.
And she's still there. The mother-in-law's still there. I cook for her every week. I make sure everything's all good with her across the street. Right? No hooligans and hoodlums and hustlers playing around her house at nighttime, right? But no, it's all good. It was cheap back then. But even my dad, he paid $38,000 for the house that I grew up in, but the interest rates were at 18%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So imagine that, the $38,000 house at 18% interest was like $175,000 today.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? So it sounded cheap. The only way you could really walk into the house real estate market back then, even Toronto, when they were giving it away for pennies on the dollar, okay, as if you had the cash in your back pocket, because it was the interest rates that were killing everybody.
Yeah.
1980 Chryslers looked like they're going to fold up. We're eating horses. We're eating cats. We're eating dogs. We're eating liberals. We're eating anything we can. Crickets, grasshoppers, you name it, right? If it moved, we ate it, right? It was tough. Then Lee Iacocca came in, saved the day, came out with the cake car.
Yeah.
Right? That changed the whole automobile, man, I'll tell you. And a guy at work still got one of them pieces of shit.
I was always a big fan. I owned a few Dodge Daytonas and a Chrysler Laser, all built on the same platform.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. The Reliant. What a great car.
Yeah.
My truck's getting work on right now. My daughter lent me her car. My youngest daughter. It's a Pontiac G6, 275,000 kilometers on this thing.
Yeah.
Man, I said, this is a great running car.
Yeah.
It's an older Pontiac. Looks like shit. But it's a great running car. I said, they don't make them like they used to. Like, my truck's only 7 years old. I have nothing but problems every week with it, right? This Pontiac G6, Rick, man, that's all fuck this. She said, well, buy it off me. I said, you know what? I just might. As a beater, and it's a good beater.
Yeah.
It takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
Yeah, well, people say to me sometimes, what do you think the best car is? A Ferrari? And I'm like, no. You know, like, you think about what people did to those K
Mine was
cars,
a 76 Chevy.
Yeah. 76 Chevy?
Mine was a 76 Chevy with a 350.
Yep.
With a 350 in it, carbureted. I bought this truck off my dad. I paid $3,000 for it.
Yeah.
And he restored it, right? He redid everything on this truck. It looked like it was showcased. I drove it from Windsor to Vancouver. I come out of the restaurant. The cops are underneath my vehicle checking numbers and everything else. I come out and say, everything all right? I said, what year is this? I said, 76. So they thought it was a chop shop special, right? It wasn't. But that truck, you could work on it.
Yeah.
I'm driving. I get around Thunder Bay, and I start having issues with fuel. So I'm thinking the carburetor. And I'm out in the middle of nowhere, Rick. I'm on the Trans-Canada. I look. What do I see? I see a farmhouse, and he's got about 40 Chevy pickup trucks on his property. So I said, I'm pulling in here. So I pull into the guy. He said, that's your fuel filter. He pulled it off. 30 cents for the fuel filter. He didn't even charge me. Put it on, and I drove to Vancouver and back.
Yeah.
Try that today with you. Try that today with your vehicles, folks.
Right. Try to pick up a sheet of plywood with your Ferrari. Right? Or drive your Ferrari all winter long and see what it looks like in the spring. And I don't think
your
so.
electric vehicle, man.
Yeah.
I don't get it at all. But to the viewers out there, get over to Burger King. It's 2 for $10 Whoppers. That's $5 a piece. You can't build a burger that fast, that good, that cheap. You can have it your way.
2 Whoppers for $10.
Yeah, it's back. $5 Whoppers.
Maybe that's because they're adding a little cricket to their meat.
Well, I'll tell you. Here's another true story. I'm sitting up the Tenatang machine. That's at Super Maximum Jail up near Midland, Aurelia area, and I get out. It's on a Wednesday, and I've been eating healthy, whatever they feed you in there, right? No garbage. Doing my push-ups, my sit-ups, my chin-ups. Yeah. I look good. Everybody says, what are you going to do when you get out? I said, I'm going to Burger King. It's Wednesday. It's $2 Whoppers. Well, they take you on a bus from the prison to Barrie, the nearest town, to get you on a Greyhound and get you back to wherever you came from, right? Well, they give me my ticket. Well, in the Barrie Greyhound station, what do you know? There's a Burger King in that prick. So I sit down and I order 2 Whoppers. No lettuce, cut in half the way I want it, right? I'm sitting there, I'm eating them puppies. In the bus that connects from Barrie to Toronto took off without me. So it sounds like a good commercial. I missed my bus ride home. I haven't seen my wife and kids in 14 months, but I'll tell you, those Whoppers were good. Really good.
Well, if the next time you eat one, it's a little crunchy, it's because of what I just warned you about. Crickets.
Crickets? You know what? I know a lot of people in the group, crickets, grasshoppers, this and that. Here's another true story. When I was with the Essex and Kent Scottish, the reservist military, I signed up for a survival course. It was a 2-week course up in Meatford area. I was only 17, 18 years old. Well, we ate everything, Rick. Okay, grubs. I'm telling you, crickets, grasshoppers. I put my military knife on a stick, tied it up. I killed a porcupine. Yeah, I killed a porcupine. I ate the porcupine. It's either that or you starve. So I'm not afraid of eating bugs. Now, I wouldn't go out and buy them out of my own pocket, but you know what? I will. I've eaten spiders. I've eaten all kinds of crazy shit. People go, That's your immune system. I'm pretty good. Right? So I'm not afraid of it. Order up some bugs. I'll do a Facebook Live for you. I'll eat them. Spiders, name it. I don't care. But I seen an excellent thing today. You wouldn't believe what I seen today, Rick. All that rain coming down.
Yeah.
I'm on my way to work, and there's a street just covered in water. And I should have took a picture of it because I haven't seen this in years. About 20 kids playing in the water.
Mm.
You know, it's backed up at the sewer. You know, no worries in the world about disease or anything. You know, they're out there fucking just having a ball. And I'm going, yeah, you know what? I love it. I did. I really did. I like that. You know, that's why we have the problems we have today with diseases and everything else, right? Because people would get out there, get dirty.
Yeah, that's true.
I used to rub my face with dirt.
That's
I used to eat dirt. I mean, dirt was free. I used to eat it.
Yeah. There's truth in that. There's absolutely truth in that. And
right, so that's what I got of that. When I seen it, I was like, wow, you know, I haven't seen it in years where kids are playing in dirty water. And, you know, everybody, wash your hands and this and that. Yeah, I get it, wash your hands, but these guys wash your hands for 3 hours at a time. I got a problem with that.
Yeah.
Right. So with all that being said, folks, thanks, Rick. I'm going to watch the rest of your show tonight because I got a long night. I went in yesterday at 3 in the afternoon. I didn't get out of work till 7:30 in the morning. That's a daily double 16-hour shift, and I could do that all week long.
You're a hardworking man.
I just might. Oh, you know what? I'm into it, right? So when I'm not in the chat, it's because I'm in a tight spot at work where it's either you know, I got to keep an eye on things or listen to the Rick Walker show. So I'm keeping an eye on things.
Well,
can't do both.
I appreciate you calling in as always.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, take care, my friend. Talk to you again soon.
Right.
And here's Kid Rock. I'm going to run his video of him shooting these beer cans. Let's see what we have here. No audio on this, I guess. Stays Out Brother, trans activist Dylan Mulvaney, Kid Rock released. Why isn't there any audio on this? I don't know, but he's going to haul off and shoot. Here he goes. Holy smokes. He ain't messing around. Maybe no audio because there's a little bit of profanity. Here's another one. I don't know. Oh, I see. Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh. I see. Uh-huh. This is the Mulvaney video, I guess. Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Let's move on to our next caller. Someone wants to talk about grasshoppers and crickets.
What's up, Rick? How are you tonight? It's the Dragon.
Okay, how are you?
I'm doing great. About the MK Ultra operation, I will tell you a little something. Back in the 90s, kids with ADHD was actually prescribed some Ritalin and stuff like that, which actually is a part of the MK Ultra operation. Just saying, that was just my little bit on the subject. And you can do the research. Really easy to find out, actually.
Mm-hmm.
As I can put it here on the American Addiction Center actually has a little something about it, which will tell you a lot. If I remember well, you should see it at the bottom of their page, which is on the 3 of the craziest of government drugs experiment ever. And you should probably have some actually there's LSD and stuff in there that which was used in the MK Ultra. Well, there's a compound into the Ritalin that actually use how you call that, part of the LSD ingredient, right?
Yes.
So this is basically like, I would say, they have put the whole thing a long time ago into the street and basically open it to the public without us knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this is the proof I'm bringing to you right now.
Yeah, well, it is true. There's no question about it. It's a real thing that happened. So,
and it's sad about that. I mean, so many kids has been fucked up about with the thing. I mean, even myself.
yeah.
It's sad.
Anyway, it's just about time for us to wrap up. Any final thoughts, sir?
Yeah, well, no crickets in my burger, please.
Okay. Me either.
And if you want to do something like a big barbecue and invite us into a plane, well, I'm all in, bro. I mean, I'll bring up the weed and the beers if need. I'm there.
All right, and with that, we
have a good one, my
wrap
friend.
it up for tonight. Thank you. Appreciate the call. And that is that, and that will be that. So let me bring this back to there and do that. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Again, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that by donating at freedomreporters.com. Of course, we always appreciate the super chats that come in as well. I wasn't really able to look in the chat too much tonight. But I know that sometimes people donate in there, and I greatly appreciate the support. Helps us cover the bills here. I've noticed an increasing number of people moving over to Rumble. The numbers there have been growing quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm grateful for it. It's a good thing because the YouTube thing is just, the YouTube thing. You all know what that's about. So we're getting bigger numbers over on Rumble all the time. That's excellent. We're also back over on Odyssey, and we're on Twitch now, and we repost to these other platforms, including Clouthub. So we're over there with the rebroadcast. So that's an awesome thing. And again, I just appreciate all the support. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that. And, you can subscribe on multiple platforms, actually, just not on YouTube, but over on Rumble as well. If you do subscribe on YouTube, please hit the notification bell. Please like, share, subscribe, share the video out on Facebook. We're growing on Facebook like crazy too. Twitter, I'm just no good at Twitter. Maybe we'll get more traction over there, and I'm just dabbling with TikTok. I expect I'll get better at that. But it is what it is. Just appreciate you guys hanging out tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat station. Let me just pull this down here. And what do we have tomorrow? Tomorrow is, it's Thursday already. I'm not sure what we've got on tap for tomorrow, but Friday is going to be our special broadcast dealing with health. And we're going to have somebody on the broadcast with natural healthcare approaches to especially help people who got the Kool-Aid. So if you got the Kool-Aid, you're definitely going to want to be here. And if you know somebody who got the Kool-Aid, you're definitely going to want to be here. And if you didn't get the Kool-Aid, you're definitely going to want to be here, because there's still going to be some very helpful healthcare tips, I think, that you'll find useful. And there will be stories that will be important, stories that will be told here that you're probably not going to hear elsewhere. All that Friday. Special broadcast. You know what I'm talking about. We're talking about the Kool-Aid. And it's going to be insightful and helpful. We're not just going to talk about the problem. We're going to have people here to actually help people come up with, I hope, some solutions. So So with that being said, I will return tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the Maverick News channel where we have the antivirus programs for your mind.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.